everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest. And tonight I just got back from watching The Black Phone 2, which is a movie that I was highly anticipating for the last several weeks, ever since those trailers started coming out. And, you know, I was wondering how they were going to do a sequel to this movie, because the last one seemed pretty definitive, but they found a way. And when I heard the concept for what they were going to do for this second movie, I was actually really excited. So, yeah, here we are. I'm going to do a non-spoiler section first, and then later I will go into spoilers. So non-spoiler review real quick, just that this movie is, unfortunately, I think more uneven than the first one. The plot kind of gets convoluted and a little bit lost as to like where it's going and what we're even doing here, because the first one was just so straightforward of a concept. You know, kid gets kidnapped, talks to ghosts, tries to figure out ways to, you know, escape or defeat the kidnapper. That's the movie. You kind of slide in the trinkle of supernatural stuff going on, but overall it's just a decent creepy horror movie where we're trying to get away from this guy. This one just felt like, you know, at first we're on like this interesting murder mystery thing, and then that stops, and now we're kind of doing a Friday the 13th camp counselor thing, and then that kind of stops, and then it just becomes like a it becomes like a scavenger hunt, but the easiest one and most obvious one in the world, by the way. And along the way there are a series of retcons that I think the more you think about the retcons that they did here, and I'll get into this in the spoiler section, but the more you think about them, the bigger of a problem they are as far as like how much sense they make. And I have some ideas as to why they decided to do certain things, but overall, I'm somewhat disappointed. I think that's like how I would sum this up. I'm somewhat disappointed because it feels, you know, like if you were just to tell me, hey, the boy can talk to ghosts and now the killer is a ghost, and I'm like, that's perfect. Like, there you go. Genius idea for a sequel. And unfortunately, I just found that this one just didn't quite live up to that potential. You know, this one is slower. There's less scares. There are some great concepts that they kind of build upon. And obviously, like, you know, I don't think anyone is gonna be surprised that, yeah, there are some scenes that seem right out of Nightmare on Elm Street, because that's essentially what we're dealing with here. However, this movie is just slower, and its scares are fewer and far between, and it's just, you know, it's not quite the popcorn horror movie that you kind of hope it will be, and sometimes it tries to be. You know, there's like some visuals that you're like, oh, this belongs in a Nightmare on Elm Street. This belongs on a, you know, in Friday the 13th, but that's just not the pace that this movie moves at. You know, this one, it feels like it wants to be a character drama, but it also just wants to, I don't know, just be like a character study, I guess. I don't know. It just, it was somewhat disappointing. That's where I'll leave that off at. You know, I will say, if you're a fan of the first movie, and if this gets you curious at all, is to see like what retcon did they do, you know, maybe go ahead and check it out. I mean, it's Halloween time. We need some kind of horror movie in the theaters, right? I know we have, I think Shelby Oaks is next week, I think. But yeah, as excited as I started to get for this movie, I'm somewhat disappointed, kind of let down. Like, ah, man. Also, Ethan Hawke is like, he gets a couple of monologue pieces at various points in the movie, but it doesn't feel like we spend anywhere close to as much time with him being this creepy guy as we did in the first movie. Like comparatively, it feels like he's like a cameo. He shows up for like 10 seconds at a time, and then he goes away while the characters all try to plot about what to do and how to get around this. And it's like, I don't know, it was giving almost like Walmart discount Stranger Things vibes. Like, that's kind of what I was feeling. I was like, this is almost like the kids from Stranger Things all getting together and planning on what they should do next, but not as exciting, not as interesting at all. So yeah, unfortunate. All right, I'm gonna get into some spoilers now. I'm not gonna like break down the whole plot, but we're gonna talk about some major things that they decided to do. And here we go. Okay, spoiler section. You've been warned. All right, here we go. Okay, so the first major thing that they did here, the big retcon. I'm just gonna get right into it. This movie heavily focuses on the mom this time around. Now, you might have even forgotten, in the first movie, they kind of just briefly say that, like, oh, the mom had dreams just like the daughter has dreams, you know, like implying that there's like this bloodline of this, whatever this is, this spiritual kind of side to these kids, you know, being able to communicate with the dead or see the future or whatever, right? Like, the mom had that too, but she killed herself, you know. And that's pretty much all we're left at, right? And it's just meant to be, you know, kind of like this, like, oh man, there's this really dark turn that, you know, people trying to deal with the things that they see, you know, it's kind of like a curse, right? This movie concentrates on the mom in the form of the daughter having dreams and communicating with the mom from the past in these dreams, which leads them to this campground. And from there, the movie basically takes the character of the mom and uses her as like a through line to like thread together this family, these two kids, and the killer. Turns out that their connection was deeper this whole time. And so this is the big retcon here, where it's basically like, in the first movie, the kidnapper is just a kidnapper, right? Like, he was taking kids from all over town. Everyone was scared about this guy. No one knew who he was. And our main character is just the latest one to be kidnapped. In this movie, they're like, oh, well, see, the mom actually went to this camp, with at the same time that the killer was there. They were both staff members at this camp. And then years later, when the kidnapper turned into the grabber, right, like he became this notorious kidnapper guy. Years later, the mom had visions of all these missing children, and she pieced together exactly who the grabber was. So she went to his house alone in the middle of the night, where the grabber took her, and for some reason, we don't know why, he decides to take the mom, knock her unconscious, drive all the way back to her house, which, by the way, that means that he knew where she lived or who she was. It's very strange. Somehow he knew where she lived, opened their garage and framed her hanging, framed her own sewer slide. And that is the explanation as to, like, the mom offering herself. She didn't really. Turns out it was the killer the whole time. The killer who, by pure coincidence, will one day take her son, because he doesn't seem to know who the son is. So I guess it was just an entire big coincidence that he took him, because that never came up at all in the first movie. So right away, you can see the writers going like, why are they retconning the mom's death and retconning in this like really personal relationship between this guy, the grabber, and this family? Like it's not just like, oh, he took the son and the son killed him, and now we have like this grudge and hatred against each other. Like, that wasn't enough. Now it's like, oh no, years earlier he's the one that killed our mom and then framed it as as self-harm for some reason. And when I say for some reason, I mean, like, we see him take her in his van, drive all the way back to her house, which, again, how does he know where they live, and just decide to do this. He's talking to the daughter, explaining all this in like a dream sequence. It's never explained why he bothered to do that, right? Like, the grabber was already taking children and they were never seen again, but for some reason he takes an adult, and it's like, Oh no, I need to find an elaborate way to explain this. Otherwise, people will start asking questions. I don't know. I don't get it. Like, why did he do that? um, so yeah, anyways, that's like the major retcon here. Now, the grabber and this family have like this real personal hatred with each other because he killed their mom for some reason. Okay. Um, and that just rings strange to me because this movie also, on top of all that other stuff, this movie has a heavier handed, like, religious Christian undertones than the first one did. I don't remember the first one bringing up religion at all. Maybe they did and I just forgot about it, but this one like hammers it in. Like every chance they get, like the daughter and everyone's talking about Jesus, talking about heaven, talking about sins, talking about this and that. And I'm like, I don't remember this even being a part of the franchise. Like, this is not The Conjuring, right? Like I don't remember any of these characters being overly religious or being concerned with getting into heaven or something. And then the movie ends with the daughter getting a phone call from the mom from heaven. Yeah, the mom calls the daughter from heaven. And they just have like this teary goodbye, and she's like, "Oh, you did a good job. You stopped the ghost of the killer." I guess. And it occurred to me later, and on the drive home, I was like, is the only reason that they did this huge retcon with the mom's death, turning it from a sewer slide into just a murder by the killer, who was framed as a sewer slide? Is the only reason they did that because then they could say that the mom is in heaven? Because that's part of it, right? Like, if you do that, you're supposed to not get into heaven, right? Like, that's like the thing. Did they only make that huge decision, spend so much screen time on that retcon just so that they could say that? Because it feels that way. Otherwise, I don't know why they did it. Because the mom being at the same camp as the killer at the same time that he started killing people, that doesn't really have any plot consequence at all. Like, that doesn't come back up, and there's not like a major clue that the mom discovered that helped them figure out where this was or that was. Like, nothing, right? Like, it just doesn't come back up. It's just like an excuse to get these kids to the camp. But the daughter could have just had dreams of the camp without the mom part being involved, and that still would have accomplished that plot point. So I don't, so I can only surmise that the only reason they bothered to retcon the mom's sewer slide was because they wanted to say that she was in heaven, and they wanted to do this ending where she calls on the phone from heaven. And again, this is what I mean by like these heavy Christian undertones. Like, they're like not even undertones, they're just the tone. And I don't really understand how that happened, because I don't remember the first movie being that way at all. So this feels like a new addition. I don't know if there was a new writer coming on, but like someone was out there like, oh, this needs to be like 25% more Christian for some reason. Okay, I guess. Very weird. Another thing, and this is like kind of like the scavenger hunt part of the movie. They have several sequences where basically what they conclude, their big plan. There are 3 children's bodies who were never recovered at this camp, who were killed decades ago, right? And so what they're guessing is that the reason that the grabber is so powerful here as a ghost is because those children's bodies were never laid to rest, and thus he has power. They just kind of come to that conclusion. They don't really have like any reason to, they didn't like read some kind of book on spirits or something. They don't have like anything that told them this. They just kind of arrived there. So all right, we got to find the bodies of these missing kids. And you would think that this would be a thing where like, oh, they need to figure out more about what the grabber was like while he was at the camp and while he worked here, and we got to figure out places that he went and where he might have hid these bodies. That doesn't come up at all. Like literally it's a scene of a guy going like, well, when he worked here, he was pretty good at ice skating, and he used to take people ice fishing, where they drill the hole and fish in the ice in the frozen lake. So I wouldn't be surprised if the bodies were just in the lake, because this is a lake camp, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they're just in the frozen lake, and that's where they are, all three of them. Like they drill, and then they look, and they one by one they find the bodies in the water, and that's it. Like there's like they set it up as if it was going to be like this huge scavenger hunt where they're going to have to look for clues and try to find each body, and they're all going to be in different locations, but they weren't. So they were just like, their first guess was that they're in the lake, and then they were. So I'm like, so then what? The setup is so strange, and it's because they dedicated so much time to the mom retcon, which was pointless, by the way, because I didn't make that clear, that the whole plan of finding the bodies just feels like a tacked on, like, oh yeah, that's right, we should probably explain these three ghost kids. Like, they had ghost kids in this movie, but it was really just because they felt they had to, because it's the Black Phone, and they're like, well, we need some ghost kids, so we'll just say that there's three ghost kids and then easily find their bodies. Another thing that was kind of messy here was that this is not a bad concept, like on paper, right? Like, okay, so they have the sister, she dreams, right? She can dream the future. She can dream and see dead people, right? And then this movie, throughout it, her powers like evolve. At a certain point near the end, she is able to fall asleep, and instead of having to sleepwalk, because at the beginning of the movie she has to sleepwalk, she has to physically walk to the place that she's going in her dream. So she'll see like a ghost in her dream, but her body's physically walking over there to do whatever. And then in the second half of the movie, she gains the ability of like, hey, you don't have to sleepwalk. You can just basically astral project yourself in the dream world and interact with all the dream stuff. But also you can still interact with the real world. So we kind of still have Nightmare on Elm Street rules. So there's a major fight with the grabber, because he's a spirit. So she's fighting him, and she does the thing like the Dream Warriors, where she kind of figures out like, oh wait, this is my dream. I can just, I have power here. So it's Dream Warriors. That's what it is. That's Nightmare on Elm Street 3 for people who don't know. Anyways, so there's this epic fight that she has on the ice against the grabber, and everyone else is just standing there because they can't see him, and she's also just sitting there because now she's asleep, so she doesn't even have to like physically interact with this stuff with her actual body. She gets to just kind of astral project there, which makes it all the more funny when this epic battle ends and she just wakes up and everyone's like, oh hey, you awake, you all right, okay. Like at least earlier in the movie when she's being flung around the room and she's taking all this physical damage, at least that was like more visually interesting, because you felt like, oh, this has real consequences. Like if she gets hurt here, she's gonna be physically thrown against something. Like it's, it's an actual fight. But this was just like two spirits fighting, I guess. And then because they still gotta have the brother involved, and the brother takes like a back seat, by the way. Like in the second half of the movie, the brother, who was the main character even in the first half of this movie, he's very much taking a backseat. Like he's not the main character anymore. I think that's pretty clear, right? And I guess it makes sense from a writing point, because she has all of the power. She can do all the dream stuff. And now that he's a ghost, you need a character who can interact with the ghost. So I guess it's not him. It's gotta be her. Okay. Anyways, the brother, they want him to still be in on the fight as it's happening, but he can't see the guy or anything. So he's just kind of grabbing at like invisible things that he can't see, but then we, the audience, can see them both interacting with each other. They're doing one of those. But every once in a while they'll cut away to the real world and they'll show like, oh, the brother's grabbing onto nothing because it's invisible. He can't see the ghost. So he's like giving these one-liners, and he's beating up the ghost, and they're both like delivering these like final, you know, one-liner punches and the victorious things. And but not only can he not even see the thing that he's talking to, and he can't hear it either because he has to be at a phone to hear things. He can't even see his sister, who's also fighting this thing. So all he knows is that this invisible thing is squirming around on the ground, and he's trying to wrestle it. And the sister's the one with the axe and swinging away, but he doesn't know that that's happening because, as far as he can tell, the sister's just asleep over there in the corner. So I don't know. It was just like a weird thing where like you wanted people to be able to astral project to the spirit world, but also you wanted the spirit world to be invisible to the real world, but also you wanted the spirits to be able to physically interact with the real world. Like it's like you have too many different ideas to where like these two characters can't see each other, but they're both fighting the same thing. And hey, even on paper, that sounds like a cool idea, but it was just executed very strangely. And when you see the boy like trying to wrestle down this invisible thing, you're just like, oh, that's right. Any characters watching this from the sidelines, they're just seeing the girl asleep and then the boy's like wrestling something on the ground. It's not nearly as epic as we, the audience, are seeing it, you know. So it just ends up kind of like a silly idea. Yeah, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I think this movie this movie's a little confused. You know, the plot is all over the place. We're doing major retcons for seemingly no reason other than adding like a lot of religious text to this. And then the ending fight, like when you break it down exactly what's really happening in the movie, the ending fight is very silly. So yeah, I don't know. Again, somewhat disappointed. But anyways, that's my spoiler rant about this movie. The Black Phone 2. I don't know. Look, I guess I'm glad in general that there is a Black Phone 2 because I still feel like the idea is solid, but I do feel like you can now what you can do, as assuming they're gonna want to make more, which yeah, probably, right? Now what you can do is you can have the brother and sister just helping different ghosts along their way, like finding, you know, finding spirits in their bodies and helping ghosts get laid to rest, that way they can leave, and you know, whatever else, just find out, just introduce a new creepy bad guy, because I think the Grabber is kind of done. You know, he didn't get nearly as much screen time in this one, and he was kind of defeated just by being thrown in ice, and then his own victims kind of drag him down, and you're like, okay. Which, by the way, they probably could have done that at any time. Like, what stopped the victims from doing that at all? They probably could have just attacked him. They're all ghosts, right? So it's 3 against 1. What's the problem? Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I'm okay if there's more Black Phone sequels, but they need to get a different bad guy. Maybe stop with this. Yeah, no more retcons. No more, like, I don't know what else there would be to retcon, but you know, next they're gonna say, oh, the dad was never an alcoholic. He was just being forced to drink by a ghost that we're gonna fight in the 3rd movie, like something like that. You know, it's just like, okay, so no one ever actually did anything wrong. Okay, got it. Anyways, that's the Black Phone 2. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. Bye.